I've got a bit of washi tape on my table because my granddaughter was here doing craft yesterday.
Oh.
She stuck a bit of washi tape on the table.
Hi everyone, and welcome to tonight's live stream for the Once Upon a Book Club. And tonight we are reviewing The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. And Deb has kindly joined me, so I'm not talking to myself. Hi Deb, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
And the invitation goes out to anybody else who wants to join. If you want me to send you the link to join tonight, just give us a shout and you can jump on as well. So see Jane's in, Paula, hi there. Chattanooga. What's the weather like in Chattanooga, Paula?
There you go. Oh, exciting.
Whereabouts are you, Deb? Whereabouts are you in the UK, Deb?
Oh, I'm in Wales.
Oh, Wales. Nice, yeah. I like Wales. Maureen wants us to send her a link. I can do that. How do I do it?
Oh, where are you, Paula? It wasn't too bad here in Wales today.
I'll put the link in the comment.
She's Chattanooga.
I'll put the link in the comment, Maureen, and then you can click it. Anybody who wants to click that, do so, and you can join us. Jane's in her pajamas. I'm dressed from the waist up. I've got pajamas on the bottom half. Did you get the link, Maureen? It's in the comments, if you can see it. I'll give it a couple of minutes before we start. I don't mind if you're in your pajamas. Oh, sorry to hear that, Paula. I don't know if Maureen has spotted the link. I'll just get started anyway. So, did we all finish the book? Did anybody not finish the book, should I say?
That's probably the better question, actually.
I know there was some people in the Facebook group said they weren't sure if they were going to finish it.
Yeah. Oh, Paula says she's been to Wales just for a day.
Oh, you haven't finished the book, Paula? I hope we're not going to give any spoilers then. So, Deb.
Yeah.
What did you think of The Nightingale? What was your thoughts on it? Overall?
Well, overall, I was a bit apprehensive to read it at all because I think I've mentioned I'm not really a fan of a wartime piece, and I just thought, oh, it's going to be the same old thing, banging on about the war. It wasn't anything that I expected. I've never read anything like it before. I thought it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And you know what people have gone through, and to some extent, I don't think we've ever experienced anything like that in this country, because obviously we weren't under the occupation, and thank goodness, because I don't know how people lived through it, honestly.
Yeah,
I just thought it was excellently written. I thought that the author did a good job. I thought the characters were really well-rounded. Yeah, I liked the characters a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maureen is in the waiting room, so I'll see if I can add her. It says our devices aren't connected. Maureen, you need to connect your mic and your cam before I can add you. So if you want to have a go and try to do that, then I can let you in, but it won't let me unless you do that. So just for anybody who maybe will watch this video afterwards and is not really sure what the Nightingale's about, that's the book. It's written by Kristin Hannah, and it's about two sisters in France during World War II when the Germans occupied it, and it tells each of their stories throughout the war. And yeah, I quite agree, it was a heartbreaking book. Was there at any point, Deb, when you thought, I just can't read any more of this, I'm putting it down?
Yeah, there was. I think the first time it happened, like throughout the book, I just thought, oh no, I'm not going to carry on. But I thought I'd better carry on because it's for the book club, isn't it? So I thought, I just the first time was like everybody here has read the book. So when I said, so I'm not going to spoil it for anyone because it was sort of near the beginning, was when the younger daughter, Isabel, what's her name? Yeah, Isabel. When she decided that she was going to join the resistance, and I felt sorry for her because it seemed like she just looked for love her whole life, and I don't think that's why she was going to join. Like she just wanted to fight because I think at that point, it's not going to end well, is it? Like I was scared for her. I thought, oh, that's not going to end well.
Yeah.
Obviously, subsequently, it didn't really end well, but she did what she thought was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And then later on, when Leanne, she was going to, when she took in her friend's little boy, oh, that was so heartbreaking. There's lots of points in the book that I thought, yeah, it was so scary. And you just felt like you were there with them, didn't you, when you were reading it? It was a very immersive story.
Yes, yeah. For anybody who is watching maybe after this and hasn't read all of the book, there will be spoilers in this review of it because we can't really talk about it without speaking about specific parts of it. Jane's saying she found it hard when Sarah died, when Rachel was trying to get her to safety with the children. That is I think that was the first time I thought, I don't know if I can read this. I actually sobbed. The tears were running down my face. It was just, I think, especially being a mother and a grandmother, you just think, how would you have coped with something like that? It's just, and I think you're right, Deb, when you said that it's not something we've had to experience in this country. And from what I've heard, England went through and the UK went through a lot of hardship during the war, but I had just never thought about France being occupied by the Germans. I never thought of what that meant. And I think Kristin Hannah, I think she wrote it really well.
Yeah, I do as well. I think it's excellent, like historical fiction, because it wasn't based on a true story as far as I could tell. I think it was just historical fiction, and I think she was really good at that.
Yeah. Paula saying,
being Jewish, it was very heartbreaking.
Yeah. Paula saying being Jewish, it was very heartbreaking. She has a friend whose family survived the Holocaust. Wow. I like the way the author gave the story of the others that helped and also barely survived. That must have been hard for you, Paula, than to read that book. Yeah, she had to put it down for a few
days. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
No, I think it must have been really hard for you, Paula.
I've avoided stories like that in the past, like films like Schindler's List, and I've kind of avoided them because I don't want to read something that's heartbreaking. But to be honest, I think having read the book now, I'm pleased I read it because it has opened my eyes, as JD saying. it opens your eyes to something you'd never really thought about before.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, yeah, I think that, you know, when I think, like, I was born in 1964, and I can remember, like, when I was a little girl, and my grandparents, like, they still spoke about the war. But obviously, I think my grandfathers were involved in the war, and they still spoke about it. Like, it was not that was not that long ago, actually.
Yeah.
You know, and but obviously none of them had to experience anything like that. I mean, I think there were food shortages in England, weren't there? And there was, yeah, obviously they must have been scared, and especially if their husbands or boyfriends, brothers, sisters, not sisters, but like brothers went off to war, it must have been quite scary.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
nothing to the extent of what was depicted in that book.
No, it just was not even something that had crossed my mind. Maureen thinks it was too explicit. I understand what you mean by that. There were parts of it where, especially when Isabel was caught and they were kind of torturing her, I thought, how much harder is this going to get to read?
Yeah, that was it as well. And also, when, you know, Vianne had one Nazi captain and like billeted in her house, and then well, you know what happened to him, and then somebody else came, and when that person came, it was a lot harder for her, and that was also really hard to read as well.
Yeah, that was was he the Gestapo?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think my only experience of occupied France during the war is that comedy in the 80s, Allo Allo. And
yeah, I was thinking of that actually when I read
yeah,
it. There's nothing like that, is it? You know?
No, and it you don't think about the women that were left behind and what they had to put up with. And did you feel like you identified with either Vianne or Isabel? Did you feel more drawn to one or the other? I don't think I would have done what Isabel did. I don't think it's in me to do something like that. So I probably identified more with Vianne.
Yeah, I think I did too. Yeah, I definitely do think I identified more with her. And also because I'm not a teacher, but I think that I'd like to think that if I was going to try and help anybody, it would be the children.
Yeah.
Like the idea of actually, like, first of all, I wouldn't have done what Isabel did because I wouldn't have been able to walk over. I mean, I know that she was a young girl, but like, I wouldn't have been able to walk over the Alps, you know, that, or wherever it was that she walked over. Or the Pyrenees. Yeah, that sounded awful. Like, imagine doing that. Like, and she did hundreds of those journeys. That must have been quite scary.
Yeah. I was thinking after I'd finished the book, actually, when I was writing some notes, I felt like there was several different books in there that could have been maybe follow-ups, because I would have liked to have heard more of Isabel's story about her getting the airmen out of France. I think that could have been a book in itself. And I think the story about the dad, how the First World War affected him, and how it made him kind of pull away from his family, and what happened to him because he was helping the resistance as well. So I think that could have been another book. And also Sophie, Vianne's daughter, I think her story might have been interesting, you know, how it affected the rest of her life.
Yeah, I think that was quite interesting, and I was quite sad to find out at the end that she died later, you know, in the story. That not in the war, but they did make it out of the war, and obviously had moved to America, and yeah, and then you find out that Sophie had died. And I thought that was quite sad because you didn't really ever find out how the war affected her.
No, it was just heartbreak on heartbreak on heartbreak, and then more heartbreak. It was.
Although I was glad that Rianne met the little boy, the little boy who she looked after, that she called Daniel, but it was Ariel. Ariel, yeah.
Ari.
And that she met him again as a grown-up man.
Yeah.
I was happy for that because I don't know how she did that, because that must have been so heartbreaking. And I know that that's what happens. People even now, they foster children and then they have to give those children up and they get close to them. And I just think that must be, I've always thought that must be quite a hard thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was the right thing to do, but it must have been so hard.
That was going to be my next question. Jane's saying she found Ari being taken away very traumatic for him. I mean, you just said you think that was the right thing to do. What does everybody else think? Do you think it was right for him to go back to his family, who he didn't know? I mean, how old was he? 5?
Yeah, I think he was 5 then. I think he was 3 when he first went to Vian, but then
yeah,
I think it was 5. This is not very old, is it? But old enough to understand that you're being taken away from somebody that you love.
And when she was writing that, and she was saying she put him in the car and they were driving away and he was screaming, and I'm thinking, I can't take this. It was, it was.
Yeah, I cried at that. I cried at that bit as well.
A lot of tissues. Maureen says she was evacuated during the war and didn't see her mother for about 3 years. Wow. Maureen, that must have been so difficult. I have seen TV programs and films to do with that. In England, I think, what was it called? Good Night, Mr. Tom, or something like that, and a few different films like that. And I did think they were quite heartbreaking as well. Yeah, definitely hard. What did you think of? I've got some questions written down that I've completely forgotten about. So what did you think about? I mean, this is going to be a spoiler. The fact that Julian at the end, our son, was the outcome of the rape from the Gestapo officer that was staying with Vian. Do you think that? I know what the answer is going to be. Do you think she should have told him of how he came about? Do you think he should have known who his father really was?
I don't know what he would have benefited by knowing that who his father was. Do you? Like, I don't know. And the thing is, her husband knew that is what happened. Well, yeah, it kind of implied that the husband knew that happened, and he didn't. He loved the son, so as long as the son didn't. As long as nobody treated him like he was the outcome of what he was, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that it was probably just as well that he didn't know that. I know nowadays that you say, it's all about knowing where you've come from so that you can, I don't know, does everybody deserve to know where they come from? Maybe.
I think you're right. I don't think it would have benefited him. Jane and Jay are all saying, it's better not knowing. And I think I don't know how Vian. I know she's a fictional character, but I don't know how she could have brought up a child that came from that. But then I suppose, something good came from something terrible. That's maybe she coped. Yeah, I kind of, in a way, wanted the story after the war. I wanted more, to see what their lives had been like.
Yeah. I think in the beginning she did speak about how she got Sophie, but they'd wanted more children.
Yes.
And I think she kept on having a miscarriage after miscarriage, and so maybe they thought that was, something of the good that had come out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Maureen was only 3. Oh dear, that must have been so hard for you, Maureen.
Can you remember any of that, Maureen? I guess it was a long time ago. I don't know if I can remember anything from when I was 3, but I guess you were 6 by the time you saw her again. That would be an interesting story in itself, wouldn't it? Were there any characters that you thought weren't fleshed out enough that you would have liked to have known more about? I think for me, it was, what was he called? Gaitan, Isabel's friend. I think I would have liked to have, I don't feel like I knew a lot about him, but then I guess it wasn't his story.
Yeah, but I agree with you. There were some things that were touched on in the book, and I think, oh, I'd like to know what they were doing. It would have been nice to have a little snippet of what a few people were doing, isn't it? Because, like, especially with Isabel, she met quite a few people in the resistance, and it was almost like you were with her, not knowing what those people were doing, because they couldn't know what each other was doing in case they ever got caught and were tortured and could tell on each other, isn't it? And I suppose that was the reason that she kept it like that, the author. But I would have liked to have known what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that would be another book in itself, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Gatan, yeah, and I think it would be quite interesting as well. Do you think there was any parts of the book that were kind of skipped over? I think for me, it was probably the parts where Isabel was getting the airmen out of France. That there wasn't. It just seemed to be very what's the word I'm looking for? Not filled out enough. I think there could have been more, but then how big would the book have been if she'd filled it all out?
So it could have been, I think the book could, as you say, it could have been a trilogy, really, at least, isn't it? With all the different people's stories and
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, because also, like when she said, like she did one, I think the first trip, or where she took the airman over into Spain, and then it was like she was speaking to someone else, and she was like, "Oh yeah, this will be my 12th go," or however many she'd done. She'd done a lot more since then.
yeah,
But we'd only really found out about the one where they,
yeah.
where they told us what happened with the one.
Mm-hmm. JD saying, did anyone question who the lady in 1995 was, Vianne or Isabel? I kind of flipped between the two as I was reading. At first I thought, oh, that's Vianne, and then I'm thinking, oh no, it's Isabel, and I didn't really guess until quite close to the end.
Yeah, I think I only really, me too, when it became apparent that it could only be Isabel. Oh no, Vianne. Yeah.
Jane says, some characters like Paul the French policeman, who was a nasty character who I hoped would come to an unsavory end. I quite agree, Jane. As I was reading the parts with him and the Gestapo guy that was living with Vianne, I was so furious. I was just boiling with the fact that I wanted something to happen to these people.
The thing is, what struck me is, like, they didn't know when the war would end. You know, like at one point it said, oh, it was 1942 or something like that. And I thought, oh, good Lord, there's still another few years left of the war. Well, they didn't know that. They didn't know it would ever end. So you don't know what, I know there was no need for anybody to, like, spy on people or tell on people or, but I guess if you're starving and you don't know what's going to happen, that war could have gone on for another 10 years. They could have been occupied for the rest of their life. They didn't know, did they?
Yeah.
And that's not me excusing what anybody,
No, I
really
know
horrible behavior, but I'm just saying that they didn't know that it would end.
Yeah. Paul, are you saying if you thought the same about the airmen in the barn? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm not quite sure what she means by that. Is the Emin in the barn the one that died in the barn? I only just finished this book yesterday. Yeah. So were you satisfied with the ending of it? Or did you think it could have been ended in a different way?
I was satisfied with the ending. I thought it was quite sad as well, and I don't know how realistic it would be, because according to the book, Vianne went back to Paris because they were doing the talk about the people that were in the war. Particularly, they were like, it was a benefit or a they were honoring. It was an honor, isn't it? They were honoring the people that had been in the resistance in the war, particularly the Nightingale, which was Isabel. Although I don't know whether they knew that was Isabel, or they thought that her father was the Nightingale, because he'd obviously turned himself in as the Nightingale. So I'm not sure who they thought was the Nightingale then, but they were honoring the Nightingale, and Vianne went to Paris for that, and it seemed that she still knew Paris, and I just thought, I don't know how realistic that is, and I'll tell you why. It's because obviously I was born in England, and I left when I was quite young, and I've lived in different places in the world, and then I've gone back to where I used to live, and what I think I can remember is not what you remember, or it's not the same. And so I wonder how much of the same Paris would be 40 years later.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was a bit unrealistic, but I did like it.
Yeah. Paula is saying the one that dies, it says the book jumped to her helping him and taking him to the barn. Yeah. I thought they were further away. I missed something, I guess. Oh, that's when she's going back to, is it Caravo, where the village, and she sees the plane go down in the air, and I wasn't. How did you get him to the barn?
I think they just limped along to the barn, or did she put him in something? I can't remember how she got him to the barn. Did she put him in a wheelbarrow? Did she put him in a barrow?
I think she did. Oh no, was that not the?
Oh no, that was. Oh no, that was the little girl, Sarah.
Yeah.
But she knew, obviously, that was her family's barn, isn't it? So that's why she went there.
Mm. What did you think about the dad, Julian, giving himself up as the Nightingale to protect Isabel? Did you think he would do that? Did you think it was the right thing to do?
I thought that, the dad had never been the same since the First World War, and he knew that he'd never been there for Isabel her whole life.
Yeah.
And I just think that he thought that he probably felt that he'd lived his life and she deserved a chance, and he wanted to show his love for her.
Yeah.
And within the story, I think that was probably the right thing to do.
Yeah. It was kind of his way of giving back to her, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, another heartbreaking moment. Yeah.
Honestly, I really hate the Nazis. I really did. When I was reading that book, I just thought, oh, God, they were terrible.
Yeah.
And I know I'm sure there's more to that story. Obviously, it's just a piece of literary fiction. It's not real. But they just seemed like the worst of the worst.
I did read a review somewhere. I can't remember the exact details of it, but the person who, I think it was a woman, was saying that there was a lot of historical inaccuracy in it. As I don't know anything about that period in time, I couldn't say whether there was or not, but it was fiction. So I guess you are given some poetic license to move.
Did you give any examples of what the historical inaccuracies were? Did she say what they were, the inaccuracies?
She did, and I can't remember what it was. It was something about the distance between certain places weren't right, and small villages that they were talking about hadn't been occupied. I think Carrivo is a made-up village anyway, so I can't remember exactly the inaccuracies, but I think as it was fiction, you've got to make some kind of judgment, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I did think that when at the start when Isabel was walking to Carrivo from Paris, and I was thinking, oh, that is, I don't know where Carrivo is supposed to be, but I do know that once we drove from Paris to the south of France to the Spanish border, we stayed in what's that place called? I can't even remember now. Anyway, somewhere on the Spanish border, and it took us like 2 days to drive. So they seem to be walking here, walking there, catching a train if they could, and it only seemed to take the distance and time it took to do things didn't actually seem to be that long, really, in the grand scheme of the size of France.
Yeah. Paula says she thinks she dragged the airman to the barn because it talked about the marks on the ground. Yeah. We'll let her off with that then. And Jane says to see him strung up in the village must have been hideous. Was that the dad?
Yeah, they did. That must have been horrible.
I think what I took from the book was, I don't know how human beings could do that to other human beings. I mean, I know war is a difficult thing, and you join the army or whatever to go and fight, but they weren't just fighting, were they? It wasn't like they were beating up women and children and shooting them and
starving people and whipping. Even the first Nazi officer who stayed with Vianne, like she said that she saw him with a whip in his hand on the train, and he was sort of, she kind of got to like him, I think, like being a strong word, but she didn't think he was that bad. He seemed he was kind to her, kind to her kids, and and the idea that he was whipping people, and I don't know, and how could they see people starving? But I think that goes on today, isn't it, in war?
I mean, the Germans were keeping stocks of food and everything, and the French were getting fat, and it's it's hard to comprehend. And you heard people have said, there would never be another war like World War II. But then you hear about the things that's happening in Ukraine and the things that's happening in Israel, and you just think, well, have we ever learned anything, really? I don't want to get too political, but
no, I agree. I don't want to talk about politics, but I just do think I agree. Have we learned anything? What? It doesn't look like we have learned anything, does it? Because why is it happening? I'm not saying that the world war is happening, but I just think, well, what for?
Yeah.
Why, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, Linda. Good to have you. Maureen says it was a very unhappy ending. It was a shame the Nightingale died. Yeah, it was. I was a bit sad that she'd killed her off. I thought it would have been nice maybe if she'd lived, but I guess that was the way of it, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I thought it was.
Does everybody agree who finished the book that it was worth? I don't want to say it was an enjoyable read, because I don't think enjoyable is the right word, but was everybody kind of happy that they'd read it? Deb?
Yeah, I was glad that I read it, even though I thought it was a struggle to read. And I'm not somebody who struggles through books usually. I either read them fast. I'm a fast reader and I read books really fast. I either read things, even things I don't really like, I usually just finish them. Or I just think, oh no, that's not for me, and I don't finish them. But I wouldn't say, I think you're right. I'm not happy that I read it, but I thought
Yeah.
it was definitely a worthwhile read. It's given me a completely different perspective of that. Yeah, it was worthwhile.
Yeah. Jane thought it was a very good book. Linda's still struggling through it. Jane's glad she read it. Paula says it was hard, but she's glad. It was a difficult read in places. It definitely was a difficult read, but I'm pleased I finished it. What I found difficult about it, I don't know about if anybody else has got the same copy. The print is tiny. What is with this small print?
That's why I read on Kindle. You can make it as big or as small as you want.
Do you know what? I've got a Kindle and I don't mind reading non-fiction on my Kindle. When I'm reading fiction, I like a book. In the last book we read, The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, the print in there was tiny as well. Need a flipping magnifying glass.
You have to get one of those magnifying glasses that they use to do like little Airfix models, isn't it? And like shine it on your book.
Yeah. JD says that would be in our top 10.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jay, I'd like to know what the rest of your top 10 would be.
Yeah, I think it is a book that I will remember. I definitely think it's a book I'll remember. You know, obviously we've read hundreds of books over the years, and you don't remember many of them. And I think stick in my head.
Another book that I read, I don't know if anybody else has read it, it's called A Fine Balance. It's by somebody called Rohinton Mystery, and it's about this family in India. Well, at the partition when India and Pakistan like parted, and that was quite a difficult read as well, but an excellent book. I'd highly recommend that book. That's in one of my top 10.
What was that called?
It's called A Fine Balance.
A Fine Balance. Okay.
Yeah, and it's by Rohinton Mystery.
Right.
So yeah, and it's also tragic. Like nothing goes right for this family. It's just one tragedy after another, but it's also well worth reading because that's another thing. A book that takes place in another country that you don't really think much about. Like I never really think much about. I've been to France. My daughter used to live in Paris, and I've been to France many times. I've never really thought about what it would have been like to live there in the war. And this A Fine Balance, like, you know that India has the caste system or had the caste system, but you don't know how that like affects people who live there.
Yeah.
And one of the what's that story about where a boy wins, like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in India?
Oh, the slums.
Yeah, Slumdog Millionaire. I couldn't read that book. That is a book I couldn't read because I read the first few pages. I was like, oh no, I can't. It's tragic. I can't read it. It's too sad. It's too awful. And A Fine Balance is also quite awful. But I did finish that. And so that's for people's list if they fancy that.
Linda says she's listening on Audible.
I couldn't.
Yeah, JD says she likes a hard copy. I do like Audible, but again, for non-fiction stuff, unless I'm on a bus or standing washing the dishes, I find it difficult to listen to a book. My mind wanders. And I think, Linda, you said something in the Facebook group, or somewhere you said it, that you thought you'd missed something, but it's difficult to go back on an audio book, whereas if you're reading a book, you can just flick the pages. So I quite agree with that. I quite find it difficult to listen to a book. And if I'm listening to it in bed, I fall asleep. And then you're three chapters ahead when you wake up. Yeah, Linda prefers a book which has got dodgy eyes. Yeah. So has anybody read any other of Kristin Hannah's books? I think she's wrote quite a few, but I don't think I'd read any of them. Just flicking to the front of her book here to see. Yeah, she's wrote quite a few books. Anybody read any?
I haven't.
None of them look familiar. I think there is a Netflix series, Firefly Lane. She wrote the book of it, so maybe I'll watch that.
Yeah, I'll watch it too.
Yeah. JD says she's read The Women. Was it any good, Jay? Feel free to recommend any books in in the comments or on the Facebook group. Is anybody not in the Facebook group? I know not everybody does Facebook, but feel free to recommend any books in there. Maureen, you've read 5 books since The Nightingale. I'm impressed. The Nightingale is the only book I've read this month. Paula says I can't say it. Firefly Lane was a really good book. Have you read any other books this month, Deb?
Oh yeah, I've read a few books this month. I was telling you what I read. I'll tell everybody, shall I? I'll have to get my list out again. I've read. Sorry, I'm just getting my list out, everybody. I've read The Other Bennett Sister.
Right.
By Janice Hadlow, and that is a modern telling of. It's about Mary Bennett. If anybody's read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, that is a modern retelling about one of her sisters, Mary Bennett. And why I read it was because I've heard that the BBC are going to be making a mini-series or a series about Mary Bennett, about this book. So I thought I'd try that, and I enjoyed that. I'm reading Rivals, which is on Disney. The miniseries is on Disney Plus right now. So I read it back in the 80s. I'm just catching up with that to see whether I still like it. I've read. The thing is, I read on Kindle and then I just delete them from my Kindle after I finish them, so I can't remember what I've read once. I've read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. That is by Grady Hendrix. I really enjoyed that, actually, and I probably read some more Grady Hendrix books.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, I've deleted all of them.
Yeah. JD says the women who Kristin Hannah wrote is about women serving in the Vietnam War. So let's start that this week.
I'm all worn out right now, I think.
Jane says she's just started None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I've got that and I haven't read it yet. So yeah, I've only managed to read one book this month. When you're saying that you don't remember the books you've read, Deb,
yeah,
start a book journal. This is my page for this book.
Yeah, I saw that on your YouTube, and I thought that was really good idea. I'm going to start doing that. Actually,
I've just started doing it since we started the book club because you do forget, don't you, what you've read, and it's nice to playing with stickers. So it's nice just to flick back over and see what I thought of.
I like playing with stickers, hence my washi tape on the table.
That's my
granddaughter.
You know.
Something to fiddle bit.
Yeah, so what do you fancy reading for November's book club? If you want to put them as some ideas in the Facebook group, you can add them to the comments on the YouTube community page, and I'll put them up on Friday, the choices, so we can choose. And please can we have something a little bit more light?
Yeah, something fun, something funny.
Yeah.
Something light-hearted.
Yeah. I came across a book called, what did I say it was called? The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. That sounded quite, maybe not fun, but it sounded a little less hardcover.
What's that about, Karen? What's that about?
I don't know now. It's about 3 people who kind of find themselves by being in this bookshop or something like that. Quite easy going. Maureen says she's reading a book called The Edelweiss Sisters. JD has finished Second Chance by Charlotte Butterworth. I haven't heard of either of these. But like I said, any recommend?
Oh, I like the look of the Lost Bookshop, Karen. That sounds. I'm just googled it. It looks really good. It says is a novel with elements of bibliophilia, magical realism, fantasy, historical fiction, and romance by the Irish author Evie Woods. The book also tackles serious real-world issues such as alcoholism, domestic violence, or I don't know, societal misogyny. Or we all live with that. So yeah.
I did hear of a book that everybody seems to be talking about. What is it called? The Cinnamon Bun Cafe or something, or the Cinnamon Bun Bookshop?
Oh, that was one of the ones I've deleted that I read. It wasn't the cinnamon bun, it was the pumpkin spice. I read the pumpkin spice.
Right.
Cafe.
Was it any good? Because I'm not very keen on books that are about romancy kind of things.
Yeah, the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I read it and I got it I've got Kindle Unlimited, so it was on Kindle Unlimited, so I didn't have to pay for it. So, or 99p or something. It was cheap anyway. So I read that. I did like it, and one of the things that I would say about that, it's a bit spicy, you know.
Cinnamon
so
bun.
It was okay. I think it was okay if you like that sort of thing. Yeah, I'd read more by that author. I probably wouldn't pay to read more by that author, but I would read more by that author. It was all right. Yeah, try it. If you've got Kindle Unlimited, try it for free.
Right. Linda says she's read the bookshop one. Is that the Lost Bookshop, Linda, that you've read? Maureen says The Island Legacy by Ruth Saberton. I'll jot these down and I will put them for voting. The Island Legacy. I definitely want to try and read more books in November. Just with one thing and another, I never got the chance.
We'll see the island.
So does anybody have anything else they want to say about the Nightingale, about books in general? Because I think we're going to wrap this up soon. It's been very nice to chat to everyone. It's been really lovely to chat to Deb. And Maureen will get you sorted out for next month so you can come on as well. And Deb, you're very welcome to come on again.
Oh, thank you, Karen.
It's nice to have somebody else on video to talk to rather than yourself.
Well, I was nervous about coming on to chat, but I didn't realize when I said that I would be the only one. I thought everybody would be on here, so I thought it'd be like a team meeting, isn't it, where everybody was chatting?
Yeah.
And I could have just snored off, that would have suited me.
I can have up to 10 people on. So, and I think people were just maybe a little bit nervous. So don't be nervous.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it too, Paula. And also, by the way, The Island Legacy by Ruth Saberton, that's free on Kindle Unlimited. If anybody's interested in that, Maureen says The Island Legacy by Ruth Saberton, that is on Kindle Unlimited for free.
Right.
So if anybody wants to read that.
JD says The Silent Child by Sarah Denzel. And Linda's going to come on when she learns how to do it. Maybe I'll do a little short video on how to set up your mic and your cam for it. And please join the book club.
Oh, The Silent Child.
No, does that sound heartbreaking?
Well, no, I don't know. It's about Joanne, a social worker, teaches sign language to 4-year-old Libby, who has a hearing disability.
Right.
However, Libby's family is ignorant of her needs and instead force her to learn lip reading.
Yeah, that's we'll put all of
inspired by real life.
we'll put all the choices into the it'll be on the YouTube community page, and then we can all vote on it. So I'll get those up by Friday, and then we can choose one by Monday. So that gives you a little bit of time. So I think I'm going to end the video there. So once again, thanks so much everybody for coming to join us. It's really nice to chat, and like I said, thanks Deb, you've been a real help actually looking up the
yeah, I've got my phone here, so I'm just like Googling everything quick.
You can come again.
Oh, thank you, Karen.
So thanks so much, and hopefully see you next month. I don't know what date it's going to be yet, but we'll get that sorted. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.